Good morning. Welcome to What's Up, Doc? Hosted by none other than Doc Durden. That's me. We're at the Virginia, Nevada studios. We're in the Durden building. And today, you're not going to believe our guest. Hollywood knows him quite well. He's got one hell of a resume. Normally, as you all know, this is my interview card. All right. Well, we're going to get rid of that only because look what we have here. I have pages and pages of resume from this fellow right here. Fortunately for me, we are friends, and we have been for the last few years. And lucky me, he's been most notably, at least in my mind, he just got off of well, a few years ago with Lone Ranger. I really enjoyed that, and he likes to dabble in the steam trains. So anytime you see a Western or whatever, and there's a steam train, this fella here has something to do with it. He's an engineer, and he gets things done. He makes sure that that train is where it needs to be, and but not limited to. Actor, absolutely extraordinaire. I did a movie a couple of years ago called Evil Twin, and he was in it. He was the judge. Exceptional job. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing in the monitor as we're rolling on his performance. Well, anyway, that's a pretty good introduction. And without further ado, what I need to do is introduce you to James. I call him Jim Clark. Welcome, Jim Clark.
Thank you, Doc.
I'm telling you,
Pleasure being here.
And I'm so glad you're here. We've been friends for a while. I know you're one of my sponsors, and thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have, let's see here. I'm trying to remember. Comstock
Visions.
Visions.
Yeah,
that's it. Comstock Visions.
Nonprofit.
And how's that doing?
Movie Studios with Jack and Isabella. You know,
Yes,
for our movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
That we recently made,
And that movie is Three
Tickets to Paradise.
3 Tickets to Paradise. Absolutely.
Something to do after retirement, which you go, why did I do that?
How's 3 Tickets to Paradise going?
Actually, you know, it's a contemporary Western, and it is a full-length feature. It needs some final edit. You know, we need the money to kind of clean it up.
Sure.
You know, you clean up the sound, you make the effects better, you make sure all the, you know, the muzzle blasts are the same.
Boy, yeah.
You know, not like one looks like a 45 Colt and the next one looks like a 22. You know, things like that.
Yeah.
But the story is there, and it's gotten. We've showed it 3 times, and it's really gotten actually very good reviews because the people say it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, it has. It has. I've watched it a couple of times, and I really enjoyed it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Here I have Evil Twin. Of course, you were a huge part of the Evil Twin. The last scene, you took care of that. You were the judge, and you took care of that whole courtroom.
On one day's notice.
Well, yeah, one day's notice, and you know, and I'm thinking, okay, you know, Jim's going to do a decent job. You know, he has a lot of experience, but I didn't realize that if I didn't know that that you weren't a judge in a previous lifetime, let me tell you, you did an absolutely exceptional job. You really did.
You put together a great scene in there. In that
Yeah, it was a good
courtroom.
scene. It was a good scene, but I'm still in edit also. So, you know, you talk about, yeah, we got to clean this up, we got to clean that up. Boy, do I know that.
When you're an independent, it's never done.
Never done. Never done.
But that isn't where it all started. You know, it started with race cars and trains. You know, for me.
That's right. You know, you've been in race cars before or during your career with Hollywood.
Actually, before.
Before, yes.
And it really. The whole story boils down to what kid doesn't like trains. I mean, you know, both of us are, you know, I'm a 40s kid and was a teenager in the 50s. And, you know, I loved trains, but when I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1943, and I used to ask my dad and my uncle to take me to the train yard, Milwaukee Road.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say, you know, we bought you little trains. Don't you like the trains we bought you? And I go, no. I like big trains. I remember my uncle saying, well, you like the 12-inch to the foot scale, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well,
And it
yeah.
was just that way. I never
Sure.
played with the little ones much. And so what happened was, that expanded into, just liking trains and
Yeah.
always wanting to learn more about them and reading magazines. But it was much easier at the time to learn about cars, and I lived pretty much alone. It was just me and my sister. My dad worked all the time. My mother passed away. She was gone. And, so I liked mechanical things. If it had wheels, I was interested. And I got more into race cars when I was in high school. But I had such a fetish for trains that my race cars had murals of trains on the side of
Was
the
that
race
right?
cars. Yeah. And
Wow.
I brought you a picture because, I guess if you live long enough, you wind up getting called to go to autograph sessions or something, and that's what I got called for. And they said, bring all of your pictures and hats and T-shirts. I said, I don't have anything. So I had that made up here. Joe Curtis locally made that for me, and you notice every car's got a train on it on there,
And it does.
It does, and nobody liked following me to the racetrack. This was drag racing, because I'd pull off and they go, "Where are we going now?" I go, "Well, there's a train in this park here, and I know what it looks like. I want to see it up close." And it'd be a big 484 Northern, like in Kingman, Arizona. You see what I mean?
Yes.
It's a big Santa Fe engine. I gotta look it over and figure out how this worked and that. And they go, "Clark, we got to get going. We're supposed to be in Texas," that kind of thing. And,
So yeah, in other words, I mean, this is a huge engine right here.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at the pipes, the steam, everything that tracks, the arms that pull. I don't know these technical terms, but I
side
can
rods.
see you looking at absolutely every nook and
Yeah.
cranny in that train.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's how you understand them. And that was something bigger than life or ability for me at the time. So I kept racing cars, and I created a shop called Engine Dynamics, and I started that in the early '60s, and it's still in business with my mechanics. If you can believe that.
Oh,
They're as old as I am.
That's
but-
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is an interesting fact that my original shop, Jim Clark's Engine Dynamics, is still in business in Baldwin Park, California, with my name still on it. And then my son recreated that shop in Santa Clarita, California, and Engine Dynamics, Brian Clark's, okay? And he's got the pictures of all my race cars all over the wall, and we have since recreated a few of them.
That's incredible. Now, looking at this picture, these are all Mopar.
Yeah, that's
Now,
another thing.
is this primarily your vehicle? This is. There's no other vehicle here, as far as you're concerned. It's Mopar or
Yeah, and because my first car was a '57 Plymouth, and everybody
Okay.
had a Ford or a Chevy,
Sure,
and
yeah.
I was the oddball, but I was dyed in the wool. I loved the engineering in Chrysler engines, and it wound up meaning something, because when I started getting into the muscle cars that Chrysler was producing, 62 3.4 Ram Charger cars. There was a 65 car called an A990. I had the BO23, LO23, Hemi Darts and Cudas. Chrysler picked me up. They said, "You got a shop and you race?" I go, "Yeah." They said, "Well, would you like a contract for free parts and cars?" Holy
Wow.
smokes! So that's what I did, all
That's
through the
not bad.
'60s and '70s, and I'm the one that canceled it. Sometimes people say, "Oh, you're nuts." I said, "No, I got a family and a shop," and then I think it was mid-year '74. They were ready for me to buy a big truck from them, a car hauler,
sure.
and go around the country. And I said, "You know what? I'd like to coach Little League, and I miss being with my kids, and 4 kids. And my shop does 4 times better when I'm there." That's typical, right?
Yeah, sure.
So that's what happened, and I bowed out of the racing at that time, and still worked on cars. But about 1976, the end of the year, I moved to Carson City, Nevada. I moved out of California.
Yes.
I sold the shop to these same mechanics I spoke of. And what happened is I got interested in trains because of the scattering at the time of V&T equipment all over.
Yes.
And I really, really, liked that because to me, chronologically, it was the stuff in the beginning. And it made movies,
Yeah.
which my
Yeah.
other interest was movies. And I had a CinemaScope movie theater in my home on Mountain Street.
In your home.
Yeah, inside.
Yeah. Inside. Yeah.
16 and 35 millimeter. This is before
This is before
video. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
It didn't even have VHS
Yeah,
to
right.
run. You know, I just ran real projectors and,
Sure. The best I was doing was 8 millimeter. But yeah, you were 16. Yeah.
and 35.
30, yeah.
And I had a 14-foot screen, and I would, you know, watch a lot of films with trains, and I really got hooked on the V&T. Of course, you know, you live here, you like trains, and that was my chance to get better acquainted, you know, with the Nevada history and railroads. And as time went on, they started building the Nevada State Railroad Museum, which was then called, you know, the V&T
Mhm.
Museum, south of town, and I was one of the first ones to work there as a volunteer.
Okay. Yeah.
And the equipment, remember, eventually got accumulated there, and the state was buying it from different sources. And I wound up buying a part of the company that did the restoration work. They weren't employees of the state then. We were a contracted company.
Now this is the one in Carson,
Yeah.
off of 50.
Yep.
Okay.
No, off of 395.
395, but I think it's like
Fairview.
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
right in.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I've been there, and they do have a repair shop
Yeah.
in the back.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah,
Some of the best work in the world.
done there.
Yeah, on trains. Locomotive work that's just spectacular. And in the beginning, I learned from the others that, you know, how do you clean them up? How do you know, prepare them to run? How do you fire them? How do you run them? You know, how does the air pump work? You know, all that kind of thing. And I learned from these guys. And you know, Chris DeWitt, the other fellows that were part of a company that I was a part owner of, Shortline Enterprises, they're the best. They were great, and I learned a lot. But as things went on, I also did movie work for the state. I should
state of
say,
Nevada.
I should say in the state.
In the
'cause
state, yeah.
The state didn't have a film
No, no,
division.
no.
They've always been pitiful.
Do they now?
Pitiful in
Yeah.
that respect. Well, they call it a state
Yeah, yeah.
office, but it's a Las Vegas office.
Yes, yes, Las Vegas, right?
Yeah. And what happened then is it grew into where I was making films throughout this state, mostly in the north, and I did 38 films, and I brought them here.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I actually went to LA repeatedly and out of my own pocket continued to promote the state of Nevada, all right? And it was at the location expos and that kind of thing.
Yes.
They eventually formed a state office, and they later on in '85 put somebody up here, but it didn't really go. It was more of a hindrance than a help without getting into politics.
Yes.
By 1986, I moved back to Los Angeles, and I created a railroad from scratch.
Now wait a minute now.
30
Wait a minute
miles
now.
from Hollywood.
You created a railroad.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have to talk about that. Go ahead.
Well, what it was, I'm accelerating this story
Yeah,
a lot.
right.
We got a lot to talk about
Yeah.
if we want. But what happened was is there was a piece of abandoned track about 3 miles right next to Magic Mountain. So I'll give you the idea of the location.
No, exactly, yeah.
On Interstate 5, right?
Right.
Which put it within 30 miles of Hollywood, which is what's called the studio zone.
Okay.
And no one had ever done this where you could talk to the guy that owns the train, runs the train, works on the train, crashes the train. What do you want to do?
Yeah, yeah.
Give me
yeah,
a call.
Yeah.
Try and move this story ahead. In 4.5 years, I did 74 films, all with trains.
74 films.
That was in that part. Now I'm over 250 films with trains. However, I also worked as an actor, and I was in the Screen Actors Guild.
Yes.
And I was even a teamster for a while because I was trying to build this business in the beginning. And then it took off like crazy because they would start writing scripts for the train, especially the action shows. MacGyver, Hardcastle McCormick. In the end, I wound up building a railroad for Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman at Paramount Ranch, a 3-foot gauge train. And I did 22 episodes. This was the shirt that they had me wear all the time.
This one right here.
It's the shirt, yeah. And it just grew and grew. However, whenever you're on somebody else's property and it gets too big, and they had other movies going on everywhere. It was on the Newhall Ranch, right next to Magic Mountain.
Yes.
Okay, on the corner
I
of
remember seeing the sign.
I-5 and
Yeah,
126. Guys that have been in the business a long time will say, "Oh, I've been there. Everybody knows Jim and
Yeah.
the train." Well, then they want you to move. And I told them it took me 4 years to put all this stuff here. You know, locomotives,
Sure.
cars, all
Yeah.
had to be trucked in. It was cut on both ends, see. And I got real good at trucking stuff. And what happened then was it took a year to get out of there, and I moved to Fillmore, which was down the road a little bit farther. But the railroad became so valuable to the movie industry that they extended the studio zone just for the train.
Just for the train.
Yeah, to Fillmore. So I was there until about 90, I don't know, 96 or something. I sold out, you know, and we had dinner trains, movie trains, wine trains, you know, passenger trains.
Anything you can think
Anything you
of
could
for
think of,
trains,
it was like a regular operating,
you started, yes.
full-blown
Yes.
locomotive,
Yes.
railroad, you know, enterprise, and it did everything under the sun. And that added more to the resume. But I was starting to get called more to go out of state. And I sold that company and the railroad and formed another one, and this was called, the other one was Fillmore and Western Railroad, which is still in business.
Mhm.
And then I formed the Santa Clarita Railway, which operated out of Santa Clarita Studios. So I became then sort of a coordinator, you know, a guy that they called, and I said, you know, well, you know, that would be in New Mexico. We could build something like that for that scenery. And I could, well, can you build the track? Yeah, I can build the track. So it became a different thing. But I did have equipment on a siding on Metrolink, you know, the big system in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of films down there too. Eraser would be, you know, one of them.
Okay, I
And
remember
put
that.
together
Yeah.
big stunts, Lethal Weapon 4. I mean, this whole thing got bigger and bigger and more dangerous because they'll ask you for stuff, you know, you're, well, how about if we cut the side of the bridge here, you know, and it's truth, you know, and then you hit this car and we pull it off the side. And I said, what do you think holds the bridge up? I mean, you want me on there with a train,
Yeah.
but let's cut the bridge girders. And this is what goes on, see?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a never-ending story when I give my lectures of, you know, there's one time I was running the train and the guy was always looking at me with the camera, and he'd pull away, and I kept saying, he's too close. The producer was with me and his family, because they always want to get up in the cab, and the kids were, you know, oh boy, but I've got to keep control, of course. And then the other time we come around the bend and go over this famous bridge that we used a lot, I said, the guy's turned the wrong way. He's too close. You know, he's too close. So I put it in emergency, which means the big hole, you know, and the train goes skidding around the corner, and you lose sight of him. You lose sight, and I look down, and he's by the grab iron, which is the railing to go up the steps. And I know I had to hit him, and I've never hurt anybody. And this is the way movies are. You better understand.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, when I teach young people and I give talks at schools, the producer grabbed the radio and went, did we get the shot? You can always get another
Everybody's
camera,
laying
man.
out on the ground. Did we get the shot?
All we did was hit his back and it ripped his shirt off.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, but I'm saying you have to be as much in control as humanly possible. On the eraser shot, which is, you know, that end scene where the train goes through the limousine. I mean, this is certain. I should have brought the big picture, but that's on the back of my card. Right there, you might be able to hold that up.
Well, we're not going to be able to see that. I'll get a close-up, and then
later you can insert
Later we'll insert this.
But what it was is I kept getting up and down off the locomotive, and my God, he added explosives, contact cement, gasoline. They use inner tubes and they tie the ends and fill them, you know, like I say, with contact cement. It was bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm going, you know, Frazee, I think was the guy's name. Don't you think we got enough in there now? He says, well, I've got it scored. Don't worry, it'll split and everything. And then I got back up and I'm getting ready, and he starts sliding these pipes under the car. And I said, would you tell me what you're doing now? He says, well, those are mortars. He says, what I've decided to do is just as you make contact with the coupler, we'll raise the car a little, you know, and it'll make it a little more dramatic. I says, it'll make it dramatic, all right, because we're on a crossing and the pipe is tall enough
Jesus.
that it'll rupture the bottom of the fuel tank and we'll have 4,000 gallons of diesel fuel, and it'll be a big fire. I'll guarantee you'll run those cameras for days. And he goes, I never thought of that. And I says, well, that's why I'm here. And then the safety guy comes over, he goes, Jim, that was a good thought. So what they do is they put cables to the mortars, and once they set them off, I hit the car and it splits and it yanks the mortars away.
Ah.
You know, they're big pipes.
I got you.
I can't have them tumbling underneath the train.
Yeah, yeah.
Just I'm giving you a couple examples, and just for fun, because that's part of what our interview should be. What's the fun part of all this?
Yeah.
You know, one time on one of my favorite shows was Briscoe County Junior, and
Love it. Absolutely love
I think it was only one season, if I remember. It came out same time as X-Files, and I did a lot of X-Files.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
They shoot at me and kill me, and about every show, sometime or another, I get killed. But Briscoe County, they'd say, okay, we'll have the horse run up behind the caboose, and then, you know, steam engine, it was 1800s, and you just pull away, and we'll look at the caboose, and you know, from the caboose, we'll look at the horse, you know, after he makes a transfer. I go, fine. Well, after the third take, each time the horse ran by the cab of the locomotive, I couldn't outrun the horse.
Is that right?
This horse was so darn fast, 35 miles an hour, and he was still keeping up with me.
Still keeping up. That's
so
incredible.
his name was Comet. That was the name of this horse. Mm. So what happened was they tired the horse out, and then finally we got the shot. But there are things like that. And Dr. Quinn, they killed me during a big runaway train episode where the bad guy shoots me point blank. I hang out of the cab. And then 2 weeks later, James Keach is one of the directors, who was Jane Seymour's husband at the time.
Yes.
She's had a few.
Yeah.
He's a neat guy, just so you know.
Yeah.
I really liked him. James was a good director. And he says, we killed you 2 weeks ago. You can't be in this. I says, James, I got a contract. You know, I get $1,000 a day to run this train and take care of it, and nobody else is touching it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you know what, we're 1872, but as I remember last year we did plastic surgery on somebody. I guess we can bring you back to life, you know. Yeah, so just don't say anything about it, right?
Sure,
So,
sure.
funny things that go on.
Oh, no. It's amazing what Hollywood does come up with and actually produce. And that's the mystique of Hollywood, and that's what makes it so fascinating, and that's the reason why a lot of people tune in.
Yeah.
That's Hollywood, and the good reason for it. And you've been such a big part of that. It's incredible. I really didn't know how much you were involved until actually I got your resume. Hell, I got 6 pages here. So in other words,
Just what's still
we can
on.
go
I
on
don't
to
keep
next
it up
year.
anymore.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
You meet a lot of people too.
Oh, yeah.
I did a film called Tough Guys. Do you remember who
Sure,
was on
absolutely.
that? Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster,
Yep.
Eli Wallach.
Yep.
Great guys.
Big guys.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Tremendous. And Kirk is even still alive. He's 100. But I bumped into Kirk a number of times afterwards. For some reason, we traveled the same restaurant, and he go, Jim, I'm going to have an auction to help raise some money. It was after the big earthquake in '94, Northridge, California.
Northridge, sure. Yeah.
He says, you be there. And he says, I got some things you better buy. Well, this is the watch
Oh,
that he used in the movie Posse with Bruce Dern.
is that right?
Yeah, and I got that from him and a
Now,
bunch
that's
of other
nice.
things. And I won't even mention. It's just too many things. But
Yeah.
this, and you'll see it in the movie, Posse with Kirk Douglas, Bruce Dern, and he sent me a letter. He says this proves that Jim Clark bought this from me, you know, at this auction. That's things like that. And then one time, I was doing a film with Eastwood. It was when I was renting cars, old
Mm.
cars. And I said, Clint, you think you'd ever like to come for dinner at my home? It's only a couple blocks from where you're staying. This was in Carson City. It was a movie called Honky Tonk Man.
Sure.
And I was doing the locations and the cars. So I mentioned it to the kids. I mean, they're like 13, 14, 11, you know. They're, yeah, Dad, Clint Eastwood's coming over for dinner, you know. Knock, knock, knock. There he was.
Voila.
Sandra came to visit.
Oh, yeah?
She wasn't in the movie.
Oh, okay.
And she came to visit, and the producer, he and his son Kyle, came over, and we had a barbecue. So
Now, how great is that?
yeah, just these are the
How
memories.
great
Yeah.
is that?
There's a lot of nice people, and a lot of, God, these people ought to kiss the ground. You know that? Why is anybody catering to you? Maybe they look good on the screen and they've got connections
Yes.
or whatever,
Right.
but there can be some miserable people.
Real
in that
miserable,
business.
right? Hard to work with.
Hard to work
Everything,
with.
across the board.
Arrogant.
Arrogant.
And then others, you know, Walter Matthau, one of the nicest guys I ever met. And, you know, that was another film. And Robin Williams, you know, I got to work with him.
Oh,
It wasn't always trains because I did work as an actor. See, and I did stunts, or maybe I was on crew.
yeah, no, you did.
You know?
You did everything.
Yeah.
Whatever Hollywood threw at you,
Exactly.
you were there.
Yeah.
And one question comes up with Robin Williams. Now he's going a mile a minute.
Yeah.
Now when he's off camera, is he still going a mile a minute? Yeah.
And what I can tell you, the movie was, I'll think of it in a minute. Him, Walter Matthau, and one other fella, and Jerry Reed, I think, was in it. And he did 3 takes on about everything. Robin did.
Yeah.
One was kind of a PG-13. The next one was an R, and the third one was an X. It was
No
never
kidding.
3 takes the same. He was
So,
a character.
Yeah.
I really liked him
absolutely.
though, because he was a unique talent. There was nobody else ever been like
Right.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew when he first hit the television, and it was just absolutely unique, as you put it, to watch him, because he was so different,
Right.
so quick on. Well, certainly everything would be scripted, but he would know. Well, okay, we're going to go from A to B, but he would take him. He would take him there a little differently
Yeah.
than what the script. Yeah.
Name of that film was The Survivors.
Survivor.
I only
Okay.
mention it because you know Walter, I got to spend a lot of time with. I liked him a
Yeah.
lot. Another good director I got to work with. You know, I want to mention Nice People.
Yes.
It was a guy by the name of Robert Zemeckis, and I did a part of, not the whole film, but I did a train part of Back to the Future 3.
Oh,
He
really?
did those films.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know, I can go on, but
What's your favorite film that you did, and why did it make it so good? Because of the actors that were on there with you, the director, producer.
well,
The
as
script
I
itself.
said, you know, to get that many credits, you had to have done a lot of television because it lasts a few days, and commercials last a few days at the most. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So that another credit.
Sure.
But I lump all those together, and the one that stands out was Dr. Quinn, Medicine
Dr.
Woman.
Quinn, one of my favorite shows.
I mean, just there's a certain family atmosphere that you get on shows.
Sure.
Eastwood had that, you know, and he was concise. This guy knew what he was doing. So
Ah.
if I was to pick the best director, Hollywood person, you know, at all, the most intelligent would be Eastwood.
Eastwood.
But
yeah.
the most fun I had was on Dr. Quinn.
Dr. Quinn.
Yeah, and it was a family of people. And I can tell you, if there's some new guy that came to work and he was maybe a, you know, kind of a hot shot or a little mouthy, and talking about crew,
Yeah.
we'd all look at each other, he'll be gone. He was gone.
Really.
He was gone. And I'm going to mention something else, and I hope Jane doesn't see it, because we all knew it, though.